They had been fighting for so long. She wanted to move out from that house, and he said, "You will never survive without me." And then she did the one thing that made him break down. It was past midnight, and Amelia snuggled deeper into her blanket. The rhythmic sound of rain hitting the roof created a soft melody that did little to calm her racing heart. Every creak of the old house, every gust of wind that rattled the window panes sounded like footsteps to her. Jump scares from a horror movie played out in her mind, each one more terrifying than the last. What if it was him? What if he had followed her home? She told herself to stop it. It was just her imagination. He wouldn't come after her, would he? 5 hours earlier, the sky was a bruised purple as twilight deepened into night. A flash of lightning illuminated the turbulent sea, mirroring the turmoil in Amelia's chest. Rain lashed against the windows, blurring the lights of the distant city. Her phone vibrated in her hand, the screen lighting up with his name. She hesitated before answering. 3 weeks. It had been 3 weeks since their last conversation. 3 weeks since their bitter fight that had shattered the fragile peace between them. 3 weeks of silence, of icy glares and clipped sentences whenever they were forced to meet. "Hello," she whispered, her voice hoarse from disuse. "Where are you?" His voice, usually so reassuring, now grated on her nerves. "I'm home," she replied, surprised by the tremor in her own voice. "Why didn't you tell me you were coming back?" "I thought you'd be angry," she admitted. A heavy silence fell between them, broken only by the howling wind. The words hung in the air, unspoken accusations. She could almost feel his accusing gaze boring into her. "Look, Amelia, I need to talk to you," he finally said. His tone was tight, strained. It was obvious even to her that he was holding back. She heard the suppressed emotions in his voice, the turmoil beneath his controlled words. It was a side of him she knew too well, the side that always managed to pull her back into his orbit despite all the pain he had caused her. "Okay," she whispered, her defenses crumbling like an old, rotten wall. "Talk to me." But before she could say another word, the line went dead. The connection was lost. She stared at the phone in her hand, its screen now dark. A single tear traced its way down her cheek, a silent sob escaping her lips. Why did he have to do this? Why couldn't they have a normal conversation without it ending in a fight? Was she not allowed to miss him, to want to reconnect after 3 long weeks? Her phone buzzed again. Startled, she pulled away from the receiver, her eyes wide with surprise. Another call from him. Her heart pounded against her ribs like a captive bird. Her fingers trembled as she pressed the answer button. This time, when he spoke, his voice was gentle, tentative, like he was reaching out to her across a chasm of hurt feelings. "Can you let me in?" he asked, his voice barely above a whisper. It was so quiet on the other end that she could hear the desperation in his voice, the raw vulnerability that was so foreign to him. It was a side of him that she loved, the part that was honest, open, and unapologetically himself. That was the man she had fallen in love with, the man she had married. But somewhere along the way, that man had gotten lost, buried under layers of resentment and anger. She stood there frozen, torn between her desire to run to him and the fear that held her back. She had finally found the strength to stand on her own 2 feet, to carve out a life for herself away from him. Was she about to throw it all away? Was she really going to let him back in after what he had done? Then she saw the doubt creeping back into his eyes, the familiar flicker of hurt and betrayal. She hated that look. She hated that it affected her so much because it meant that she still cared. She still had feelings for him, even after everything. How could this be happening? She thought she had moved on. She thought she was finally ready to let go. As the minutes ticked by, she watched him retreat into the shadows, his retreating figure growing smaller and smaller until it disappeared from sight. The door clicked shut and the deadbolt clicked into place. She was safe, she told herself, but the hollow echo in her chest told a different story. Suddenly, a loud crash from downstairs made her jump. Her heart hammered against her ribs, threatening to burst out of her chest. Had he forced his way in? Was he really here? Her pulse quickened as she crept closer to the door, straining to listen. Footsteps. Someone was definitely walking inside the house. She backed away from the door, her mind racing. What should she do? She needed to get out of there, to call the police, but her limbs felt heavy, as if anchored to the spot. She was frozen with fear, unable to move, unable to scream. Then she heard a familiar voice, her name, whispered like a prayer. Her eyes widened with recognition. It was her neighbor, his voice laced with concern. He had come to check on her after seeing the lights on. Relief washed over her, momentarily quieting the pounding of her heart. It was just her imagination. He wasn't here. He couldn't be here. Could he? She took a deep breath, trying to calm the wild beating of her heart. When she opened the door, Mr. Henderson stood there, his face etched with worry. "Amelia, are you all right? I saw your light on and I got worried." "You didn't answer my knocks, so I thought." He trailed off, his gaze sweeping the room. "Is everything okay?" His eyes, kind and full of genuine concern, met hers. In that moment, she felt a surge of gratitude for this ordinary man who had become an unexpected beacon of comfort and support in her time of need. "It's fine," she managed to say, her voice still shaking slightly. "Just a power cut." "Thank you for checking on me, Mr. Henderson." She forced a smile, hoping to convey that everything was all right. As she closed the door, she could hear him calling out to her, his voice fading into the distance. She leaned against the door, sliding down to the floor with a shaky breath. Her body trembled, not from the cold, but from the overwhelming wave of relief that washed over her. He hadn't come. He wasn't here. But as the adrenaline ebbed, leaving behind a trail of exhaustion, she realized how close she had come to a terrible mistake. One wrong move, and she might have exposed herself to danger. One miscalculation, and she could have been in real trouble. A sudden determination hardened her features. She wouldn't let him win. She wouldn't give him the satisfaction of knowing that he had scared her. No, she would show him that she was stronger, braver than he gave her credit for. She would prove to him that she didn't need him. She rose to her feet, brushing the dirt from her clothes. With a newfound sense of purpose, she stepped out of the bedroom and into the hallway. The ordeal had shaken her, but it had also served as a wake-up call. She couldn't afford to live in constant fear. She had to take action. First, she needed to change her locks. Then she would install a security system. If necessary, she would even move to a safer neighborhood. She wouldn't be held hostage in her own home. She was done being afraid. As the first rays of dawn peeked through the curtains, Amelia stood tall, her chin lifted in defiance. The events of the previous night had been a wake-up call. She was done being afraid, done letting him control her life. It was time to take a stand, to reclaim her independence, and to build a future where she was no longer defined by her fear.